Clara had always thought she knew her father well, but that rainy afternoon in the attic made her realize there were entire worlds hidden behind his calm, composed exterior, worlds she had never seen, feelings he had never shared, secrets he had carried alone. The attic smelled of dust and old wood, a mixture that reminded her of summers spent climbing into forgotten spaces as a child, searching for treasures her father had never noticed her finding, and yet now every box and chest seemed alive with quiet stories, waiting to be discovered. She had gone there to find a few old photo albums, hoping to relive some memories of her mother who had passed when Clara was still in school, but as she pushed aside a stack of cardboard boxes and a faded trunk, a small leather-bound journal fell from the edge of a shelf, landing on the floor with a soft thud that echoed through the otherwise silent room. She bent to pick it up, her fingers brushing the worn leather and feeling the ridges of age, and as she opened it, a wave of curiosity and trepidation washed over her because she recognized the handwriting instantly. It was her father's, neat and careful, curling gently along the lines as if every word was a confession. The first page was dated years ago, when she was still a teenager, and it began not with mundane notes or family schedules, but with a memory so tender it made her stomach twist and her heart tighten. Marcus writing about a summer long ago, about a small, hidden moment with Clara's mother by the riverbank, when they had laughed together soaked in sunlight, their hands brushing unknowingly in a fleeting instant that had remained etched in his mind ever since. Clara's eyes widened as she read on, her fingers tracing the words, feeling the weight of emotion she had never imagined her father carried. Longing, regret, joy, and a delicate melancholy that spoke of a life fully lived yet partially hidden. Each entry drew her deeper into his inner world, revealing not only his love for her mother but the subtle ways he had tried to protect her from his own disappointments, the unspoken grief he had carried silently through her childhood, the small victories and quiet failures that had shaped the man she thought she knew. She turned the page and found letters addressed to herself, written during times she had assumed he was busy at work or distracted by daily life, letters filled with advice, gentle warnings, and reflections on the future, some so intimate that her eyes blurred with tears, realizing that these were thoughts he had never dared to voice aloud, thoughts he had kept locked away in this journal, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of a desire to let her grow without the burden of knowing every piece of his heart. The rain outside intensified, tapping against the roof and windows, a rhythm that seemed to mirror the rapid beating of her own heart as she flipped through pages detailing his personal triumphs and failures, moments of vulnerability so profound that Clara felt a mixture of awe and sorrow, wishing she could have known these sides of him sooner, yet feeling a deep sense of gratitude that now, finally, they were hers to witness. She read about the nights he had stayed awake worrying over her school grades, wondering if he had made the right choices in raising her, the afternoons he had spent walking alone through the park thinking about his own youth and the dreams he had abandoned to provide for the family, and the mornings filled with quiet courage as he faced the world with a smile despite internal storms he never shared. With each turn of the page, Clara began to see her father not only as the protector and provider she had always known but as a human being brimming with complexities, desires, and unspoken emotions, and for the first time, she felt a new kind of closeness, one that was built not just on shared experiences but on the intimate, private truths she was now privy to. Her mind raced with questions. Why had he never told her these things? Why had he chosen to confide in a journal rather than in the daughter who surely would have understood? She paused, resting her forehead against the page, letting the inked words seep into her soul, feeling the presence of her father across time and space as though he were speaking directly to her in that moment, his voice quiet but unmistakable, conveying both love and the weight of his hidden heart. Suddenly a shadow fell across the room, and Clara froze, her pulse quickening as she heard the soft creak of the attic door. Someone was there. She thought it might be her father coming to check on her, as he sometimes did when he suspected she was lingering too long in places he deemed dangerous or dusty, but the sound of footsteps was hesitant, almost cautious, and it made her stomach twist with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The journal trembled slightly in her hands, its leather cover cool and comforting against her palms, yet the words inside seemed to burn with the intensity of secrets that were not hers to keep alone, urging her to seek the one person who could give them context, who could answer the questions that swirled like autumn leaves around her mind. Clara slowly set the journal on the floor, leaning down to press her ear against the top of the trunk as if she could hear through the wood, and in that instant, she realized she was not just uncovering memories but stepping into the hidden chambers of her father's soul, a place of tenderness, regret, and profound love that she had never imagined existed, a private world he had preserved meticulously, hoping perhaps that one day she would be ready to understand the depth of his heart. The rain outside softened, turning into a gentle drizzle, and Clara's thoughts spiraled as she considered the implications of what she had discovered. The father she thought she knew, who had always been patient and kind but occasionally distant, was actually a man of incredible emotional depth, a man who had loved, hurt, and hoped in ways he had never revealed, and now, through the fragile pages of a journal, he was offering her a glimpse into a side of him reserved for no one else. She felt a swell of empathy and connection unlike anything she had ever experienced, as if the words themselves were threads weaving a tapestry of shared humanity between them, binding their hearts with invisible strands of understanding and vulnerability. Yet, as compelling as the revelations were, Clara also felt a pang of sorrow for the years she had spent oblivious to this inner world, for the conversations she could have had, the moments she could have shared, the unspoken comfort she might have offered. She knew instinctively that this discovery was both a gift and a responsibility, that the journal was not merely a relic of the past but a bridge to a new understanding, a path toward a deeper, more authentic relationship with her father, one that required patience, respect, and the courage to engage with the emotions he had so carefully guarded. The attic seemed to shrink around her, the shadows of forgotten furniture and dusty boxes fading as the journal glowed with significance, a beacon of intimate knowledge that beckoned her to stay, to read more, to immerse herself fully in the narrative of a man whose life she had only partially known. And yet, even as she leaned over the pages, absorbed in the cadence of his handwriting, the soft echo of footsteps reminded her that she was not alone, that the present and the past were colliding in this small, quiet room, and that soon, she would have to confront the reality of discovery, the moment when her father would appear, and the secret she held in her hands would transform from silent confessions on paper to spoken truths between them. Her heart pounded in anticipation, the journal trembling slightly as though aware of the approaching confrontation, the words on the page now tinged with urgency and emotion, urging her to prepare for the inevitable conversation, a meeting of hearts that could either deepen their bond or expose vulnerabilities neither had anticipated. And so Clara sat on the attic floor, rain dripping from the eaves, the journal open before her, feeling a mix of exhilaration, fear, and profound empathy, knowing that in a single hidden moment she had stumbled upon a lifetime of love, regret, and longing, a secret kept for decades that now rested in her hands, fragile yet powerful, waiting for the right moment to be shared, understood, and embraced. And as the attic door creaked open slowly, she held her breath, ready to step into the next chapter of their shared story, a chapter that would change everything she thought she knew about her father, about love, and about the quiet, hidden moments that define a life. Clara couldn't sleep that night, her mind spinning with images and words from the journal she had discovered, and by morning, the rain had returned, drumming softly against the windows and leaving a cool, misty veil over the garden. She decided to step outside, seeking some clarity, and found her father sitting on the old wooden bench, shoulders hunched, hands clasped tightly, as if he were holding himself together against memories that had refused to leave him, and she felt a surge of both fear and compassion because he seemed so fragile yet so strong at the same time, a man shaped by love, loss, and secrets that had remained hidden for decades. And when he noticed her standing at the edge of the garden, his eyes flickered with recognition, warmth, and something else she couldn't immediately name, a vulnerability that made her heart ache. She took a slow step forward, unsure if she should speak, fearing she might disturb the delicate balance of emotions that hung between them like mist over the lawn, but Marcus raised a hand, a silent invitation to join him, and she walked slowly, rain soaking her hair, feeling as if the droplets themselves were washing away the distance that had grown between them over the years, the distance created by unspoken truths and quiet struggles that neither had shared. She sat beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his coat, yet far enough to give him space, and for a long moment they said nothing, listening only to the rhythm of the rain, the soft tapping like a heartbeat in sync with their own, until finally Clara found the courage to speak, her voice trembling. "Dad, I found your journal." And Marcus looked at her with a mixture of surprise, relief, and something heavier, something that told her he had been waiting for this moment without fully knowing it himself. And after a pause that felt like hours, he nodded slowly, his gaze dropping to the ground. "I didn't know how to tell you," he admitted quietly, voice raw with emotion. And Clara's chest tightened because she realized that the man she had always admired for his strength was now offering her a side of himself she had never imagined, a side filled with longing, regret, and unspoken love, and she reached out instinctively, placing a hand over his, feeling the warmth of his skin through the rain-soaked fabric, a connection that spoke louder than words. Marcus inhaled deeply, closing his eyes as if drawing courage from the air itself, and then he began to speak, recounting stories of his youth, the days before she was born, when life had seemed both simpler and more complicated, when love and heartbreak intertwined in ways that left him shaped but cautious, and Clara listened, captivated, her heart aching as she realized how much he had sacrificed, how much he had hidden, and how much he had loved quietly, patiently, in ways she had never understood until now, each word a brushstroke painting the portrait of a man whose life was both ordinary and extraordinary, filled with small victories, deep regrets, and tender moments that no one else had witnessed. He spoke of her mother, of the way her laugh had lit up the room, of the dreams they had shared and lost, of the decisions they had made out of necessity rather than desire, and Clara's eyes filled with tears, not only for the mother she had missed but for the father she had never truly known. Realizing that every smile, every gentle word, every quiet sacrifice had been part of a life spent loving her in ways words could barely capture. The rain continued to fall, blending with the tears on Clara's cheeks as Marcus shared memories of sleepless nights worrying over her, of the small, unnoticed ways he had tried to guide her, of the moments he had chosen silence over speech to protect her innocence, and in listening, Clara felt the invisible threads that had always connected them become stronger, threads of trust, understanding, and a love that was complicated yet unwavering. He told her about the afternoons he had walked alone, reflecting on paths taken and not taken, about friendships lost, chances missed, and the quiet hope that she would grow into a life full of joy, love, and fulfillment. And as he spoke, Clara realized that his journal had been a window into these moments, a map of his heart that had always existed but had remained unread until now, and the weight of it pressed gently upon her, urging her to cherish this vulnerability, to hold it carefully, and to respond with empathy and love. Marcus paused frequently as if measuring each word before letting it escape, and Clara's hand remained over his, a silent reassurance that she was present, that she understood, and that she was ready to receive these confessions, small fragments of a life lived in private, precious moments hidden beneath the routines of family, work, and daily survival. The conversation shifted, becoming more personal, more immediate, as he began to speak about her childhood, moments she had remembered only vaguely, small gestures of care he had given that she had never recognized as expressions of love, times when he had been proud but silent, times when he had been worried but chosen to smile, and Clara's mind reeled with emotion because she realized how many layers there were to the man she had called Dad, layers of tenderness, courage, and quiet heartache, each revealed carefully, as if the rain itself had created a space for honesty that could not exist inside the walls of the house. She asked questions, gentle and thoughtful, and he answered, sometimes with hesitation, sometimes with laughter, always with the soft undercurrent of emotion that reminded her these stories were not only memories but truths, raw and unvarnished, yet full of love and resilience, and with each revelation, Clara felt her admiration deepen, a mixture of awe and intimacy, forming a bond that had never existed in such clarity before, a connection rooted not only in shared history but in the deliberate act of opening one's heart, of allowing vulnerability to exist without fear. The garden around them seemed to fade as they spoke, the rain forming a quiet curtain between them and the rest of the world, and Clara realized that in this moment, they were not father and daughter simply by birth or routine, but by choice, by the conscious decision to share, to listen, and to understand each other fully, without judgment or expectation. And the beauty of that realization struck her with an almost physical force, a warmth spreading through her chest as if the years of distance, misunderstanding, and silent longing had been replaced with a gentle, luminous connection. Marcus spoke of regrets, yes, of mistakes made, opportunities lost, times when he had wished he could be more present, more open, more vulnerable, and Clara absorbed every word, feeling the full weight of his honesty, realizing that these confessions were not just stories but gifts, a trust placed in her hands, a bridge built between hearts long separated by routine and silence, a chance to begin anew with understanding, empathy, and love. She shared her own feelings too, tentatively at first, about moments when she had felt unseen, about her own fears and hopes, and Marcus listened, his eyes softening, a gentle smile breaking through the seriousness of his expression. And for the first time they laughed together, a soft, bittersweet laughter that carried the memory of sorrow and joy. Intertwined, and as the rain eased, leaving a silver sheen over the garden, Clara felt a shift inside her. A new awareness that love between parent and child could be more than duty or expectation, that it could be vibrant, tender, and deeply moving, rooted in honesty and shared emotion. And she realized that this rainy afternoon, this quiet confession in the garden, would remain with her forever, a moment of clarity and intimacy that no passage of time could erase. As the conversation wound down, Marcus reached over to squeeze her hand, a simple gesture full of meaning, and Clara returned the squeeze, a silent acknowledgement of understanding, of trust, of the bond that had been strengthened by openness and vulnerability. And though words had been spoken and stories shared, the feeling between them went beyond language, existing in glances, gestures, and the quiet presence of two hearts finally meeting on equal ground. She looked at him and saw not only her father but a man who had loved fiercely, silently, profoundly, and she felt gratitude, awe, and a soft ache, knowing that this moment, hidden in plain sight for so long, had been waiting for her all her life, waiting for the courage to listen, to feel, and to connect. And as the clouds parted and sunlight began to pierce the misty garden, Clara understood that this conversation, this confession, had changed everything, revealing that love, when expressed honestly, could heal, bridge gaps, and create a closeness that was unbreakable, tender, and everlasting. And she knew, in the deepest part of her heart, that she would carry this hidden, rainy afternoon with her forever, a symbol of understanding, trust, and the quiet, profound power of a parent's love revealed at last. A week had passed since that rainy afternoon in the garden. Yet Clara couldn't stop thinking about the confessions her father had shared, about the private, tender moments he had revealed. And as the sun dipped low in the sky that evening, casting the world in soft gold, Marcus asked her to join him for a walk along the old bridge that arched gracefully over the river, a place they hadn't visited in years but which had always held quiet significance for both of them, a place where the water reflected the sky and time seemed to pause, allowing memories and emotions to surface in ways that the busy rhythm of life never permitted. Clara stepped outside, her heart beating with anticipation, her mind alive with curiosity and a subtle nervousness she couldn't quite place. And as she approached, she saw her father standing at the center of the bridge, hands resting lightly on the weathered railing, gazing at the gentle current below, the sunlight glinting on the water like tiny sparks of memory and possibility. And she felt a strange combination of awe, familiarity, and the delicate tension that accompanies moments you know will change everything. She reached him slowly, and without a word, he handed her a small folded note, its paper worn and slightly yellowed at the edges, and Clara's fingers brushed his as she took it, feeling a warmth and weight in that simple gesture that made her pulse quicken, a tangible connection between past and present, a bridge not only of wood but of hearts and shared secrets. "This, I never gave to your mother," Marcus said softly, his voice barely above the whisper of the wind, and Clara's eyes widened as she carefully unfolded the note, her fingers trembling slightly, and when she read the words, she felt her chest tighten and warmth spread through her in a way that left her breathless, for they were confessions of love, regret, and longing that he had never spoken aloud, words that carried decades of emotion, moments that had been hidden in plain sight, tucked away with care, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. And in that instant Clara understood that the note was more than ink on paper. It was a piece of her father's heart offered to her, fragile yet powerful, delicate yet enduring. As she read, memories of her mother came rushing back in. Vivid colors, laughter echoing across quiet rooms, soft smiles exchanged in fleeting glances, hands brushing accidentally yet with intention, and Clara realized that these written words, preserved through time, were a continuation of that love, a love that had shaped her father's life and indirectly shaped hers, guiding, protecting, and nurturing her in ways she had never fully appreciated until now. And she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a mixture of sadness, admiration, and deep, emotional resonance that left her speechless, feeling closer to him than she had ever been. Marcus watched her with a subtle intensity, his own eyes glistening, reflecting the golden light of the sunset, the quiet ripple of the river below, and the fragile intimacy of this shared moment. And Clara noticed the slight tremor in his hands as he rested them on the railing, a tremor not of age or weakness but of vulnerability, the vulnerability of a man who had lived a lifetime of hidden emotions, and now at last was allowing them to exist in the open, witnessed by the one person who mattered most. She looked up from the note and met his gaze, and in that instant, the world seemed to shrink around them, the sounds of birds, water, and wind fading until there was only the bridge, the river, the sunlight, and the unspoken bond between father and daughter, a connection that transcended ordinary conversation, ordinary moments, ordinary relationships. For here was honesty and intimacy in its purest form, a quiet understanding, a tender acknowledgement of shared humanity, of love expressed in its most delicate, profound form. Marcus spoke then, his voice breaking slightly, recounting the moment he had written the note, the reasons he had withheld it, the internal conflicts that had prevented him from sharing it with anyone, and Clara listened, absorbing each word with the awareness that she was participating in a rare act of emotional transparency, a moment that few ever experience in their lifetime, the revelation of a hidden part of the human heart, and she realized that her father's courage in sharing this now was a gift to her, a way of saying that love, honesty, and vulnerability could coexist, that the bonds between people were strengthened not by perfection but by the willingness to reveal one's truth. She held the note closer, almost reverently, sensing the layers of meaning embedded in every carefully chosen word. The nights he had spent writing it in solitude, the memories that had danced behind his eyes as he poured his emotions onto the paper, and she felt both honored and humbled to be the recipient of such a profound expression, understanding that some treasures are not measured in gold or silver but in the courage to feel deeply and the generosity to share that feeling with another. As they continued to walk along the bridge, Marcus spoke softly about choices, paths taken, and opportunities missed, the love he had known and lost, and the silent hopes he had carried for the happiness of the people he loved, especially Clara, and she felt a wave of empathy and connection unlike anything she had ever experienced, for she recognized not only his humanity but the way his life had been shaped by quiet acts of love and sacrifice, moments unseen and uncelebrated but integral to the shaping of their family, their shared memories, and her own understanding of life. The sunlight shifted as they spoke, casting long shadows across the wooden planks, and Clara felt the energy of this hidden moment infusing the air around them, a subtle magic born of honesty, vulnerability, and mutual understanding, a magic that reminded her that relationships, when nurtured with truth and care, could transcend ordinary experience and create lasting impressions of love, trust, and intimacy. She glanced at her father, noticing the lines on his face deepened not by age alone but by the weight of emotions carried over decades, and she realized that this moment, simple yet profound, was a turning point, a chance to see him not only as a parent but as a human being shaped by joy, sorrow, longing, and love, a man whose hidden heart had been waiting for her awareness and compassion to receive it fully. Marcus stopped mid-bridge, letting the note rest in Clara's hands, and he said almost in a whisper, "I've lived with this hidden moment for so long," and she felt the words resonate deep within her, an acknowledgement that life often keeps precious truths tucked away, waiting for the right person to discover them, waiting for the courage to be felt, understood, and held with care. And she realized that this evening, this quiet exchange over a river that reflected the fading sunlight, was one of those moments, a moment that would shape their relationship forever, a hidden treasure revealed and honored in the simplest yet most powerful way. Clara's heart swelled with a mixture of love, empathy, and gratitude as she looked at her father, and she understood that the note, the walk, and the shared silence were all part of a delicate dance between revelation and connection, a dance that required patience, trust, and the willingness to meet another person's soul in its most vulnerable state. And in that understanding, she felt a profound closeness, a quiet intimacy that transcended words, a bond that would carry forward, unbroken and luminous, into the days and years to come. As the sun dipped further, turning the river golden and the sky into a palette of soft pinks and purples, Clara folded the note carefully and held it close, knowing that this hidden moment was not merely a memory but a living, breathing thread of their lives, a bridge between hearts. And as they stood together in silence, the wind carrying the scent of wet earth and leaves, she realized that the courage to share and the grace to receive were the most precious gifts anyone could offer, and in that understanding, she felt her own heart open, ready to embrace the complexity, depth, and beauty of love in all its forms, a love that was tender, patient, enduring, and capable of transforming ordinary life into something extraordinary. And she knew without doubt that this hidden moment with her father, revealed on a quiet bridge with the river flowing beneath them, would remain forever etched in her memory, a reminder that intimacy, honesty, and vulnerability could create connections more profound than words, more enduring than time, and more meaningful than anything she had ever known before. The days following the hidden moment on the bridge passed in a blur for Clara, her mind constantly returning to the note, the words her father had shared, and the quiet confession in the rain-soaked garden, each memory carrying with it a weight of emotion she had never expected to feel. And as the weeks stretched on, she found herself seeking moments to be near him, even in silence, recognizing that the ordinary rhythm of life could no longer contain the extraordinary intimacy that had begun to bloom between them, a connection built on honesty, vulnerability, and the shared understanding of a lifetime of emotions now laid bare. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Clara found her father sitting in the living room, the journal resting on the coffee table, its worn leather cover a familiar presence that seemed to hum with quiet significance, and she joined him without a word, feeling the simple comfort of being near him, sensing that words were not always necessary when hearts already spoke to each other through subtle gestures, glances, and shared breaths. And in that silence, she understood that true closeness often lived in the spaces between words, in the pauses and the quiet moments where emotion and understanding could unfold naturally. Marcus looked at her with a softness that seemed to hold the weight of years of hidden thoughts and careful restraint, and Clara felt a shiver of anticipation, realizing that the man she had always admired for his strength and composure was now revealing the depth of his heart, not through grand declarations but through the simplicity of presence, through the courage to sit together and allow the quiet to speak volumes. And as she settled beside him, she noticed the faint lines around his eyes, each a testament to the joys, sorrows, and longings that had shaped his life, and she felt a profound empathy, recognizing the layers of experience and love that had created the person he was today. She picked up the journal and ran her fingers across the pages, recalling the words she had read in the attic, the confessions, the tender memories, and she realized that each page was more than ink on paper. It was a bridge to her father's soul, an invitation to see him fully, not just as a parent or authority figure but as a human being filled with emotion, longing, and hope. And she felt honored to be trusted with this part of him, knowing that such trust was rare and precious, a treasure to be held carefully and cherished forever. Marcus reached over, gently resting a hand on hers, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest, a quiet reassurance that the bond they shared was mutual, that their understanding of each other had deepened through honesty and presence. And in that touch, brief but meaningful, Clara sensed the culmination of the emotions that had been building over days, weeks, and even years. The slow unfolding of a connection that transcended ordinary expression and entered the realm of something profound, intimate, and enduring. She spoke softly, almost in a whisper, telling him how much she had learned about him through the journal, how the stories, the confessions, and the hidden words had allowed her to see his heart, to understand his fears, his regrets, his joys, and his quiet, steadfast love. And Marcus nodded, his eyes glistening, acknowledging the depth of her understanding. And in that moment, Clara realized that communication was not always about speaking. Sometimes it was about listening, observing, and allowing another person's truth to resonate within your own heart. And she felt a serene clarity, knowing that this quiet understanding was as powerful as any conversation, as enduring as any shared laughter, and as transformative as any act of courage. The rain that had defined so many of their recent encounters had stopped, leaving the world outside bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The colors muted but beautiful, the air filled with the scent of damp earth and leaves, and Clara found herself reflecting on the passage of time, on the fleeting nature of moments, and on the importance of cherishing them, realizing that this evening, sitting beside her father in peaceful silence, was one of those rare instances where life slowed, allowing them to exist fully in each other's presence, to absorb not only the words but the unspoken emotions, the subtle cues, the warmth of mutual trust and love. Marcus began to recount more memories, smaller ones this time, seemingly mundane moments from her childhood that she had long forgotten. Yet in his retelling, each memory took on a new significance, a resonance of love and care that she had never recognized at the time. And Clara listened intently, feeling a mixture of nostalgia, tenderness, and admiration, knowing that these recollections were not only stories but testaments to the depth of his attention, the subtle ways he had nurtured her, guided her, and protected her without seeking recognition or reward. And she realized that love often manifests in these quiet, almost invisible acts, in gestures unnoticed by the world but remembered by the heart. As the conversation unfolded, They shared moments of gentle humor, small jokes and memories that made them both laugh softly, the sound mingling with the fading light and the calm of the evening, a delicate melody of connection and warmth that underscored the intimacy of their relationship, and Clara felt a profound contentment, the kind that arises not from grand gestures or dramatic revelations, but from the simple acknowledgement that two hearts can meet, understand, and support each other fully, even in silence, even in the ordinary routines of life. And she realized that this quiet understanding was a gift, rare and precious, one that would endure far longer than any spoken words, letters, or fleeting experiences. Marcus shared his hopes for her future, the dreams he had carried silently for years, the subtle desires for her happiness, success, and love, and Clara felt a deep appreciation for the way he had navigated life, balancing his own experiences with the care and attention he had given to her. And she recognized that parenting, love, and human connection were intricate dances, delicate yet profound, requiring patience, empathy, and the courage to reveal one's heart when the time was right. As the sky darkened, the first stars appearing faintly in the evening, Clara felt an encompassing sense of peace, a realization that this quiet connection, this mutual understanding and emotional openness, was more meaningful than any fleeting excitement, any dramatic gesture, or any external validation, and she resolved silently to honor it, to nurture it, and to carry forward the lessons of empathy, vulnerability, and attentive love that her father had shared with her. Recognizing that these qualities were the foundation of lasting relationships and personal growth, she turned to him, seeing not only the father she had always known but a man of depth, resilience, and tenderness, a man whose life had been shaped by experiences both joyful and painful, and she felt a surge of gratitude, recognizing that their bond was strengthened, not only by shared history but by the deliberate acts of trust, honesty, and presence they had cultivated in recent days. Acts that had transformed ordinary moments into something extraordinary, something lasting, and something deeply human. The journal lay between them, its pages a silent witness to the evolution of their relationship, the symbol of vulnerability embraced, secrets shared, and hearts opened, and Clara understood that some objects carry not just memories but the emotional weight of connection, serving as anchors for understanding, empathy, and love, and she felt compelled to preserve it, not as a relic of the past but as a living reminder of the quiet power of shared experience, the importance of listening, and the courage required to reveal one's heart fully and honestly. Marcus, noticing her gaze on the journal, smiled faintly, a mixture of pride, tenderness, and relief in his expression, and Clara felt that smile echo within her, a subtle confirmation that the quiet understanding they had reached was mutual, that their hearts were aligned in a space of trust, intimacy, and mutual respect, and she realized that this was the true culmination of their recent experiences. The realization that love, connection, and understanding do not always require grandiose expressions, but flourish most fully in moments of authenticity, presence, and shared vulnerability. As the night deepened, the room darkening around them yet filled with the glow of connection, Clara and Marcus continued to sit together in silence, occasionally speaking in whispers, exchanging glances that carried the weight of unspoken truths, and in that quiet companionship, Clara felt a profound sense of belonging, a reassurance that the hidden moments they had discovered and shared were not fleeting but part of the fabric of their lives, woven into their shared history and their present awareness, creating a bond that would endure beyond time, memory, or circumstance. And as the final shadows of evening settled across the room, Clara rested her head briefly against her father's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence, the solidity of his heart, and the quiet, unwavering love that had always been there but now existed in a new luminous clarity, a clarity born of honesty, trust, and mutual understanding. And in that moment, she knew without doubt that the hidden moments, the confessions, the walks in the rain, and the tender revelations were not only memories but the foundation of a lasting, unbreakable connection, a quiet understanding that would guide them forward through life's challenges, joys, and the everyday wonders, and she vowed silently to carry it with her always, a treasure of heart, mind, and soul, a reminder that the truest intimacy comes from seeing, feeling, and accepting another person fully, and that such understanding, once achieved, can transform ordinary life into something extraordinary, beautiful, and enduring.